Hello, hello! Today I'm going to explain how I made the bracers for my Daedric armor from Skyrim. So like always, there's a written tutorial on how I made this on my Patreon if you prefer reading rather than listening to my awkward self explain things. The first thing that I did was cover my arm in some crafting paper and masking tape. Just kind of like made a little pattern by looking at my reference. The next thing I did was cut the pattern off of me, and then I cut out each piece and I put them on some 4mm foam, and I made sure to add an extra 1/4 inch to the width or like tallness, you know, so that they're able to stack on top of each other. And then I cut them all out. I then sanded the pieces to smoothen them down a little bit. I sanded that 1/4 inch part that I added down to be really thin so that the next piece can like sit on top of it. I then blasted them with my heat gun and I started gluing them together. Then with a final blast of heat, I shaped it to my arm, and then I did the same to the other arm. I then attached the bottom part of the bracer to my arm with tape, and I wrapped it with some patterning paper again, and I drew on the top part of the pattern. I also made sure it was easy to put on and take off without sliding off my arm. Then cut the pattern off of the bottom part, and I cut all the pieces out. Now I am putting the pieces onto the foam, pinning them, tracing them, and cutting them out. I am cutting these a little differently though. I am beveling the edges as I would like a really nice slope on them. But to do this, I hold the blade at an angle and just glide through the foam. Your blade needs to be extremely sharp when you do this. I sharpen mine before each cut. There are devices available that will hold your blade at a 45 or 90-degree angle automatically. I got one of these and I didn't realize it wasn't for left-handed people because it didn't say that it was only for right-handed people and that you had to buy a special left-handed one. And then when I actually got it, it like said in the instructions, if you bought one of these and you're left-handed, we'll just contact us and then we'll send you a left-handed one. And I don't feel like doing all that. I have anxiety. I don't like to message people, so I'm like, I don't care, like I'll just hold my blade. Next, I am planning out the raised edges. I'm going to be cutting them out of foam and gluing it on top of the pieces that I just cut out. So to get the perfect pattern that will fit the pieces that we just cut out perfectly, we're actually going to take the pattern of those pieces and maybe 1/2 inch, I believe, measure it out like from the edge. I will measure 1/2 inch and draw a line and then just cut it out. This is to make it look like the foam is gradually raising up from the piece. And then next I am sanding the edges to smoothen them out a little bit. Next I attach a long piece of foam to go on top of the bottom piece of the bracer to hold it all together, and it gives it some extra height for the spikes to sit on top of. These are pretty thick bracers. Next, I'm gluing the raised pieces onto the pieces that will eventually go on top of the bracers to create those super cool 6 spikes. Again, I don't like barge, so I am using my trusty hot glue. I am giving all the pieces a final sand to blend the raised part and the piece to make sure it's all even. Ooh, Kwik Seal, the savior of this armor build. I am using a bit of this to seal the seams, and I also use a tiny bit of water to further blend that out. Next, I am using the same technique that I used on the helm, and I am soldering the details into the foam. Remember that this is extremely toxic. I had my 2 craft room windows open, 2 fans blowing the fumes out, and I'm wearing a respirator. I recommend practicing this on a piece of spare foam before you actually start working on it. It was so hard to be random with these because my brain is like, hey, you should make everything even, and I was like, no. So I had to just like shut my brain off for a little bit and just kind of like go at it. Luckily it's kind of like messy in the game, so it's like whatever. Next, it was finally time to attach the spikes to the bracer. I put the spikes on while I was looking at my reference photo and making sure they were angled correctly and spaced out far enough. I did 0 measuring with this. I just kind of slapped these spikes on and somehow it still turned out even and it looks pretty okay. I blast some of the spikes with my heat gun to make sure they are all pointing up and they look super spiky. Next, I blend everything together with my Dremel and start sanding down the top part of the bracer to make room for this final piece of foam that will go on top. It is a 4mm piece of foam, and it will have all of the details that's on the very top part of the bracer, and it will actually hide all of my seams and stuff that were kind of ugly. I didn't film me cutting it out for some reason, but I just glue that right on top and position it how it should be positioned based on my little reference photo. I used some of that Kwik Seal to blend out the edges a little more. Now I am apparently staring at my character while she's heckin' nude. Most importantly, I am looking at the bracers and checking out that super sick detailing that's on top of them, and I am marking my foam as close as possible to the reference. Anything I am fully coloring in, I would like to stay and not carve out with my soldering iron. Anything that isn't marked will be carved down. Now it's time to burn some more foam, my favorite thing. I also marked where the rivets are, so I melted some holes for them googly eyes to sit in. Then I am popping in those googly eyes. Then, after lightly sanding with some fine sandpaper to knock off the little balls that get made from soldering, then I heat blasted the bracers with my heat gun to heat seal them. There's a lot of heat going on there. It's time to prime! I used my favorite primer, which is Plasti Dip, and I sprayed 3 layers onto the bracers. I was running out of Plasti Dip at this point, so I was just like, fucking get the Plasti Dip on. And here they are, all done and ready for paint. They are a little messy with the detailing, but like whatever, it's fine. It's fine. I hope you guys found this informative, or you just liked the video. Yes. Thank you so much for watching. Check out my Patreon for more tutorials and more behind the scenes stuff. And a special thank you to my patrons Adam Hunt, Aliar, Blue Panda, Calvin Lewis, David Rosenbaum, Eric, Jim W, Logan Don Carlos, Mer Kitten, Robert Gallardo, Ryan Craig, Tone the Chicken Guy, and Veldemir. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your Friday and a good weekend, and I will see you guys next week. I really need to stop doing that. Oh my god. I'm so cringy. Okay, bye.